I'm Peter Milios from the Finance News Network, and today I'm talking with Cynata Therapeutics. Cynata is a clinical stage stem cell and regenerative medicine company. Their ASX code is CYP, and they have a market cap of around $35 million. Here to tell us more is Cynata CEO and Managing Director Kilian Kelly. Kilian, welcome to the network.
Thank you. Nice to be here, Peter.
First up, could you provide some background on Cynata for people who might not know or be familiar with the company?
Yeah, so Cynata is a biotechnology company based in Melbourne. We've been operating for a bit over 10 years. We're focused on the development of stem cell and regenerative medicine products. So really what that means is we're making novel therapies for various serious medical disorders that have unmet needs at the moment. And we've got a total of 4 active clinical trial programs at the moment in graft versus host disease, diabetic foot ulcers, osteoarthritis, and kidney transplantation. So we've got quite a wide and broad portfolio, and those trials are at various stages, but there's really a lot of activity happening right now.
So what does the competitive landscape look like for Cynata's therapies, and what makes Cynata unique overall?
Yeah, so look, the field of stem cells and regenerative medicine has really exploded over the last, say, 10 years or thereabouts. And there's a lot of companies operating in this space, as you would expect, because there's a huge amount of potential from these kind of therapies. But what really sets Cynata apart is the way that we make our stem cell products. So a conventional way of making these cells and the way that pretty much everybody else does it is that they get donations from donors who donate their bone marrow or fat or placenta, for example, various tissues, and they then isolate the stem cells of interest and turn those into therapeutic products. And that works to an extent, but there's some fundamental challenges with it. And in particular, you get a lot of variability from one donor to another. And there's also a limit to how many doses you can produce from any one donation. And that's because the cells that you isolate in that way, they don't have the ability to just continuously grow in a lab, which is really how they make these products into scalable technology. And what we do is a completely different sort of a process. It's based on a type of stem cell called an induced pluripotent stem cell. And what that means is really that these cells have the ability to reproduce themselves in a lab to an effectively limitless degree. And you can then turn those cells into the type of cell that you want to use for therapy. So what that means is we can make an essentially limitless number of doses from one donor one time. So we don't have to go back and get new donors, and we don't have that problem with variability or with the kind of limitation in the number of doses that we can produce from one donor. So it really completely allows us to make this in a consistent and scalable way well into the future.
Moving on to recent news, congratulations on the appointment of your first Chief Business Officer, Matthias Kroll. What can you tell us about Matthias's role and why now, and what will Matthias bring to Cynata?
Yeah, so we've really created this role with an eye on the next stage of the company's growth. So we've got 4 clinical programs ongoing. As I said, we're generating a lot of very exciting data, and we have a partnership-driven business model. So we're seeking to partner with larger companies, big pharmaceutical companies and so on, who have the wherewithal to take these products right through to commercialization. And what the role is really aimed at focusing on that and building those partnerships. And Matthias himself has a fantastic track record in that space. He's worked in the industry for over 25 years. He's done some huge deals, many of which involve smaller companies with innovative technology like ours and partnering that with bigger companies. So I think it's a great appointment for the company, and it really positions us to help move to that next stage and start putting some of these partnerships in place.
You recently released promising results in a trial for treatment of diabetic foot ulcer. Could you talk us through what the condition is, what the key findings from the trial were, and what do these results mean for people with DFU?
Yeah, so diabetic foot ulcers are a huge problem, and it's becoming a growing problem. And really, it's one of various complications that happens to people with chronic diabetes. And of course, that is becoming a more and more common condition, especially in the Western world. And what happens is, because the diabetes affects the blood flow in their lower limbs, they tend to get these wounds that occur, and those wounds then just don't heal. So that's a huge problem. It can lead to obviously pain and discomfort, but then it can lead to serious infections and often even results in amputation of the foot or the lower limb. So it's an enormous problem, and current treatments just don't work very well. So the product that we have is a novel dressing which is seeded with the MSC stem cells and applied to the wound. And this trial that we've got ongoing, it's a randomized trial where patients receive either that novel stem cell dressing or just kind of standard of care dressings. And we released data very recently in the first 16 patients in this trial. So there's 8 in each group, and they'd reached the 10-week follow-up. And what we saw was that in the active stem cell group, we saw a median wound healing, a reduction in the size of the wounds of almost 90% compared to just over 50% in the control. So that's obviously a huge improvement. And what it shows is those patients are very close to being completely healed, which is, of course, what we're trying to do. So if we can show that sort of an effect with the full trial and obviously then continue through further development, we believe that we've really got a product that has huge potential in this setting. And what that could mean is really that these patients, instead of having these chronic wounds that just don't go away and just end up causing further problems, that perhaps that they could then have a treatment that's actually able to resolve these wounds and let them get back to, living a normal life. So it's a really exciting program.
Yeah, it does sound very positive. Just on that note, when is the trial due for completion, and is it anticipated the patch will be available broadly to people with DFU?
Yeah, so this trial is very close to finishing recruitment. We hope that that will happen very imminently, perhaps, within the next month or two. And then there's a 6-month follow-up of all the patients. So we should have final results of that trial, hopefully late this calendar year. In terms of making the trial more broadly available, I mean, what we'd expect is that there'll have to be a larger clinical trial conducted first. And then ultimately, of course, we want to get this product on the market and widely available. And again, that's really where our partnership driven business model comes in. We're already talking to various companies who have an interest in partnering with us to help take this product through to market.
And moving on to another indication, you announced earlier this month that you treated the first patient for acute graft versus host disease. Could you share more details about this, please?
Yeah, so graft versus host disease is a rare condition, thankfully, because it's a truly horrible condition. It occurs in patients who've received a bone marrow transplant or a similar procedure, and those procedures are used to treat certain types of blood cancers. And the transplant can work well, but graft versus host disease often occurs, and it basically involves immune cells in that transplant attacking the recipient as if the recipient's body is foreign. And it has really awful symptoms, and it unfortunately often leads to death. So in patients who don't respond to steroids, which is the standard treatment, something like 80% of them won't survive for about 2 years normally. We conducted a phase 1 trial where we got really, really exciting results. We saw a response in 13 out of 15 patients treated with ourselves and a complete response in 8 out of 15. And we've now started a phase 2 trial, which is a global trial in Australia, Europe, and the US. And just very recently, we recruited the first patient in that trial, which of course is a very exciting milestone in any project. And we're hoping to complete recruitment of that trial by the end of this calendar year. And if we achieve that, we should have results around about the second half of next year. So really not that long until we would have the second phase of results in this program.
And you touched on it briefly, but and when is further trial recruitment likely?
We've got multiple sites open for recruitment right now. Now, unfortunately, this is a rare condition, so even the major clinical centers don't see patients with this disease every day of the week. Well, I say unfortunately, it's actually fortunate for patients, but it makes it somewhat slow to recruit the patients. But we're aiming to get more than 30 clinical sites open in this trial, and we're really getting that critical mass going now. So we're expecting recruitment to really kick on from here, and we'll be seeing new patients coming in on a regular basis.
You close your osteoarthritis trial just before Christmas. When will the results be made to the public?
Yeah, so that was a really a huge trial. 320 patients were recruited, and the last of them in November. We're looking to show a disease-modifying effect in this trial, which means that not just that the cells improve pain and inflammation, but they also actually change the progress of the disease and hopefully stop further deterioration. And so, because of that, we have to follow the patients for 2 years. So, the last patient visit will be in November next year, and then we'll have results within a few months of that. So, likely early 2026 for the results of that one.
And could you comment on your kidney transplant trial?
Yeah, so this is a trial that was approved late last year and is just about to start. It's going to take place in the Netherlands in partnership with a major center over there called Leiden University Medical Center. And the idea here is that, as you may know, patients who get a kidney transplant have to take immunosuppressant drugs, which stop the transplant being rejected. And they usually have to take those drugs for the rest of their lives. And while they work well, the problem is they're very toxic. They cause an increased rate of infection, increased rate of cancer, and they can actually damage the kidneys as well, which is, of course, very unfortunate in these patients. So what we're seeking to do is to use our MSC stem cell product to allow the dose of those immunosuppressant drugs to be dramatically reduced or potentially withdrawn completely. And if we can show that we can do that without causing an increase in the rejection of the transplant, it could really kind of transform the way that those patients are managed.
Kilian Kelly, thank you for your time today, and we'll be watching the company's progress with interest.
Thank you very much.